Good afternoon.
After you start, you just tell him, sir. Told him. Okay.
It's a late hour. We have still got an hour and I was promised. You have to bear with us because we have 6 of us here, and of course there is a silly mistake I made. The 22, but 22 is a similar conference here, similar session here, around more or less the same date. So it's still 22 there. That's only I hope cut and paste error. Okay, so panelists' names were announced. And this is sort of my reading of their interests. I put them in some list. Pardon me for I made any changes. Of course, there are some minor changes, but nevertheless, except Santanu Sarkar who wanted to finish earlier, maybe if you can wait for 15 minutes, I'll call upon him. And this is sort of the sequence in which I would like to us to address you first. So which should take about 4 plus 2, 6, and about 60 minutes, I think, and then another 15 to 20 minutes for discussions. Or maybe we'll cut short a little less or more, but a little less than most people. So I thought something about the math and algorithms and implementation, everything are tied together, and then development of the PKI itself is a matter of interest. And then, simply I put terms like evaluation, management, migration, etc. Okay, because I thought the concerned people will be probably addressing around them. So to set the tone, and also we like to have discussions, questions on whatever you think is something mysterious about this whole subject, this business of post-quantum. PKI we all seem to know. Post-quantum PKI is something we're all probing. So the broad issues in my turn, I'll address a few issues about the math and implementation and so on. And probably Santanu also, who is one of the person actively working in this, will address. I call them cutting and polishing because crystals is a name of the suite which has been announced by NIST last year to be the mainstay of this whole effort, and already people are building, like Amazon Web Services are already integrated it to their services and so on. It stands for Cryptographic Suite for Algebraic Lattices. Anandamohan talked about another candidate which is waiting, Swings. One thing about this NIST effort for post-quantum is that there are 3 or 4 candidates. In the event that any one of them suppose fails, you're not left in the lurch, and so that's one of the reasons. But this seems to be the most optimal one as of today's understanding. There's something about it we will say. There are 2 components to it. One is called Kyber, the key generation, the key exchange, encryption and decryption for bulk. Then there is this dilithium, which is the key generation, signing and verification for digital signatures, which will go into our PKI. But then, they're all nice complementary set of things. Okay? I'll just highlight some points about one of them. And the thing is, there are many, I call challenges in my perspective. Others will share their perspectives also. When a new algorithm or a new software has to be built on a new algorithm, very complicated, I would think, in my own mind, compared to the earlier era of public key cryptography, is this new era of public key cryptography. There are many tools required. I am building a debugging tool, for example, myself, my own understanding. Also, I want to see where there can be traps which can be leveraged for side channel attacks, which can make fraud implementations, and so on. Okay. So I call them need for debugging tools, and then a variety of tools which are related to error analysis and which will contribute to side channels and so on. So these are with respect to the tools themselves, the core. Then there are tools which are geared towards the use of them, management of them, like all the revocation lists and everything, or dependent on a variety of things here. And then these new crypto algorithms, all of them, seem to have this, I call this mathematical difficulty of being very complicated. More complicated a cryptographic stuff is, actually people are crazy about it. Anyway, that's the world. Thanks to the bogey of the quantum computers, these are all supposed to be invulnerable to the known type of quantum attacks, which are applicable to the Shor algorithm for the RSA elliptic curves and some form of Grover algorithm for other things which are more expensive. But in any case, as of today, what has been understood, and very well understood, by the way, a wonderful set of papers in the last 5 years from the European groups, and a few from our native groups in IISc and Expertas and so on, which are analyzing them threadbare. So that's the advantage of this type of system. So I mean, these are some kind of overview things for us to be aware and assured about what we are in for. So I'll the next one. So okay, these are to do with a whole lot of technical issues which go into the making from the algorithm recipe to a code software, and then further code into embedded hardware, and then code for their analysis, tracking, etc. My own personal interest, I put too many of the cryptanalysis things, which are the things which are going to be going on in the world, because something new comes, there are a lot more research groups interested, and a lot more PhDs and thesis can be produced around that. There are still many open issues, despite the fact that they are going to be alternatives for quantum computers. Unfortunately, even in math and science, there is no, I would say, categorical proof that this is true for you. After all, if you know, I quote this always, RSA, patent in 1978, has withstood the test of time. It's still valid. Still, we can use them with certain caveats. Even in the advent of quantum computers by, extraordinarily increasing the parameter sizes and so on, the older ones. But anyway, as we are chatting, we are in time for a change. Because 25 years of cryptography is too much for people to bear. You need a change, so the change is assured by these things. So that's the idea. There are several aspects which, of course, you can't detail in a short discussion, and full classroom discussions are warranted. Anyway, this is my full semester course kind of thing. But what I wanted to show you was just a few slides to say where there are lots of what we call in our Indian parlance masala. There are fundamental mathematical problems which are considered hard for contemporary computing systems based on Turing machine models. The quantum machine model, they are supposed to be invulnerable due to certain technical reasons which are still being understood. So what is being understood, for example, is the hard problem in all of these things called lattice problems, finding some arbitrary algebraic lattice, some short vectors and some nearby vectors which are close by and so on. So if you increase the number of vectors and their sizes, it's difficult to have good algorithms for breaking them. So that's the catch about whole of quantum computing. They work on a certain complicated system of things. The basic things were what are called mathematical object in number theory called finite fields, and then you build what are called polynomials for these polynomial rings, and then you build linear algebraic structures of matrices and vectors of these polynomial elements. That's called modules. And so there is a problem called learning with errors. You add a small noise, and then the output is given. From the output, even with a small noise, the internal parameters can be difficult to figure out unless you solve some lattice problems and so on. So that's in a very loose word, the safety of these things. So that's all. So I will not belabor this point. Was probably Shantanu might throw some more light on these. But this is what we are studying, and notationally those boldface, uppercase A, capital A is a public matrix. S is a secret element. E is another element which is secret. Okay, so that's why we put it in key. Secret key is S. Now, these elements of these vectors and matrices are coming from those polynomials of some sizes, typically 256 degree, and each having small coefficients which are prescribed. So all of this are known. That's the beauty of a kind of a consortium effort in which all players in the world interact. So all are known except something which is secret, which is not known. And this is another fundamental thing about cryptography. Everything about a cryptographic system should be told except the password of the secret. So that's the idea. But when this whole thing gets buried in a system of masking and massaging the message, encoding them, compressing them, all this for want of efficiency. So that's a bit of a, I would think it's a bit of a mess. Even this is the very abridged version of the wonderful papers by a big team of Europeans. Venimadhavan is the lead team over the last 5-6 years, and this is abridged version. And of course, I'm understanding this to run through an implementation of this and so on. So essentially, you have an encryption module, and then you have a decryption module, and then you have a new module called key encapsulation, and a new corresponding receiving end module called key decapsulation. So all these do this handshake and receiving and making a common key out of things and so on, which were shown in some earlier papers in the previous sessions. So this is the whole thing. There are many more things about the signature systems and so on, which are somewhat similar. So as you understand them deeper, both the encryption, decryption, and the consequent key exchange which depends on them, just as in the present day system, and the digital signature generation and the verification, just as they happen in the current day systems and public key systems, are similar. So this is one thing which says all other management tools and wrappings, everything will be similar, but sort of handled in a very little more complicated, by little more, somewhat more complicated, and with delicate tolerances and balances and so on. So which is something which technical experts have to bother all the time. But otherwise, the systems expert will find lots of things are similar. So with this, my perspective, I will stop, and I will request Santanu, because he wanted to go, to share his perspectives. Thank you. Santanu, you can come on.
Yeah, hello. So can you repeat please, sir?
No, I said, Santanu, you can come on, speak for about 7 to 8 minutes. Your perspective on this whole subject.
Your sound is breaking. Sound is breaking.
What? Oh, no, we were just requesting your perspective on the subject of challenges insofar as what I would consider the algorithms and the implementation and then the cryptanalysis aspects.
Okay. So far you have considered mathematical description of Kyber?
Yeah, yes, Kyber, but that's secondary.
Yeah, I can tell only a little bit LWE because recently I have done something on LWE. And that is underlying hardness problem of Kyber or dilithium. should I continue that LW?
You can continue, sir.
Yeah, okay. So basically LW is, now if you have system of equation, linear equation, then we can solve easily. I mean, if you have some matrix A and you have some variable, then you can solve. But if you disturb little bit of this linear system of equation, that is called, and it turns out that is very difficult problem. And this is related to closest vector problem in lattice. So nowadays, many crypto systems are based on this LWE. And recently, we have done something on LWE. So instead of actual crypto system, we tried hardness of this system, and we use so-called representation technique. So you can write 1 equal to 1 plus 0, or 0 plus 1, or 2 minus 1, this kind of representation. So we use this idea and to improve some existing bound. Yeah, we have done only this part. But my knowledge on this post-quantum, this huge world, is very limited. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Okay. Okay, Santanu, thanks. I think we will do a partial translation of whatever you said with errors, maybe, if required. Otherwise, anyway, your papers are there for people to study. Thank you. So there is, what is being said is the contemporary cryptanalysis of the hard problems involved are all the time being done better. And one of them was a recent work by Sarkar and his team. They are theoretically still far off the mark, but better than what is known today. Hopefully they will get better and better. That's that. Next, thank you, Santanu. My list, who wants to come later? Next. Oh, okay, it's okay. We'll start with Anandamohan. Yeah.
So good afternoon. Actually, CDAC was involved in validation of all types of algorithms, that is including encryption, that is block ciphers, as well as this digital signature algorithm, basically RSA and ECC. Actually, they were very difficult in some sense, like there were a lot of options for the user. Like, suppose RSA system, they say you have to generate primes. So this NIST, actually the test is very tough. What they say, there are many methods of generating primes. They say probabilistic prime, probable primes, then guaranteed primes, and then to do the test, this lot of requirements were there. Similarly, for ECC also, there were a lot of requirements. That means sometimes what they give you, they give some test like this. They say this is the point, and you raise the point to the suppose when I give P, I say calculate some 100P, whether you are giving correct answer. That is one way. That is one way of testing. That is whether you have really understood and whether you have implemented correctly. There is another way, what they do is they give a lot of mistakes and correct answers. That is, they give problems, some good problems, which have correct answers he gives. That means, this particular, this G into some number, this should be the answer. Some wrong, you should have to push. You have to tell which is wrong, which is correct. So like this, actually they see whether the this designer has understood correctly written software, and then he is able to give correct answers or not. That is one way. But today, actually, if you see post-quantum cryptography, there is absolutely no flexibility. For example, they say everything is known, like, what is the prime that is to be used, it is known. For example, crystal fiber we are telling. And then, this only they say one seed is given, based on that seed all the internal parameters are decided. And finally, they give, in fact I show you one, where is this? I just show you, this cat has been given as example in this algorithms, that is NIST submissions when you do, you are supposed to give. So, for example, see here, for this Sphinx, before this, okay, Sphinx, you see, he says count 0, like this, actually some 100 tests are there. Each, that is, count is number of tests, 0, 1, 2, like that. Now, he gives a seed, and he gives a message length, and then he gives a message, some message. Then what he says, he expects you, from this you should have generated what you are generating. You should tell me, PK, that is public key, then secret key, and then all this signature, all this you have to generate. That means, I will test whether your software has been correctly written or hardware has been correctly implemented. Okay, and then you see, many of these answers, you are supposed to, that Madam morning, Umadevi was telling, there is something known as a response file. Response file will be like this. Whatever I have given, you should echo, count, then seed, then message, and then. Now you see, the signature is so big for this particular Sphinx. I have not printed fully because it runs into, because 45,000 bits are there, so bytes. So that one is runs into pages actually. So that means, we should be able to verify this now. Now, there are other tests to be done. This is for one. Similarly, there is this Kyber. See, count. So many tests, 100 tests they give, and 100 tests you should give me the answer correctly. Similarly, this all parameters you have to generate, and then you have to, this is slightly smaller, this public key and all. So that means, this when you are generating test vectors, we should be able to give some good results, very good questions, bad questions, and I know what are the correct answers and bad answers, and based on that I should be able to decide. This is similarly Kyber also, some problem. Then in addition, you see NIST now, based on the experience with all previous algorithms, what they have told is some of these attacks, earlier were not that is mandatory, but now they have told all algorithms must pass side channel analysis. That means the designer in the beginning itself should incorporate some of the side channel protection measures. Okay, and then they also told that you should be able to do some tests for side channel resistance, like TBLA, that is test vector leakage assessment. Okay, and another thing is, actually, when labs test, suppose somebody, I give a vendor one request file, he gives me response file. Suppose he has failed, I should be able to guide him also. That means, because this is a massive flow, of this information, you have to tell him some breakpoints and all, and say, this you have not estimated properly, that you have not estimated properly. So like this, we should be able to give guidance also. So now, in fact, interestingly, already many sites are giving test vectors also. For example, you can visit a security site. There is one site is there, asecuritysite.com. There, in fact, for most of the algorithms, including some of the rejected algorithms in post-quantum cryptography also, he has given the test vectors. That means you can feed some data, that like seed, then he will generate this test vectors and all, and you should be able to verify with your implementation whether you are getting the same thing. And moreover, implementation should also take care of some other additional last point is there that I will tell and close. Not to trouble.
So last slide, sir. No, he wants last.
No, go to last one.
Last slide.
Just to see. There is some English written.
Sir, English is not only five slides.
This is the last slide. This is the last.
No, no, there should be one more. Anything else is there? Something on some guidelines, something? Nothing. Okay, go ahead. So last point I will tell, okay. You see, here what it says is implementation should take care of these some things like, some unnecessary jumping to something, all this should not be there. Because now they have made it mandatory and they have told this some operations have to be done in a very nice way. Like in the morning I was discussing with somebody, constant time multiplication. Suppose in Khyber, I want to multiply x with y mod 3329. Let us say I want to do. You should not say the execution time depends on the parameters. Like, for example, RSC and all, how people were able to break. Because, they know you may have to sometimes square it. Sometimes you have to multiply. Sometimes, you have to just square and need not multiply. So, that way you used to actually break the key. So, like this, there are some steps which were there and afterwards countermeasures were invented. But now they are telling designer should do it in the beginning and they have to prove the design. Okay, so that's how actually they have selected the final this 4, 1 for KEM and 3 for this. Okay, so if any guidance is required or something, CDAC is having experience and we have got a new project where we are supposed to develop this validation program and all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, sir, for starting with the real things that matter when it comes to both crypto in general and post-quantum in particular. So coming from the, what should I say, background of seeing things work and not work and partially work. This development, that was the topic identified by Professor. I just want to bring few points here. First one, I think as developers or software engineers, functionally, whatever is written in general is achieved, at least in the most cases. But still, system does not function in the field. So there is something that is missing, which is what from being a programmer, we should become a software engineer, software architect, and then someone who can design a safe and robust system. And that is much more valid in the post-quantum era, because we are trying to come with solutions for traditional systems in spite of a new set of computing elements that are coming in. So what are those things that have been generally observed during the few years that I am associated in this activity? The first and foremost is the current concept is zero trust. The earlier concept is we trust everything. So somebody says this software works, we take it and start using it. So long as it does the functionality at a high level, we go ahead. There is no sandboxing or water tightening of what else should not be done. And the second aspect that is not captured is the environment or the system constraints. This is something typically found, and in fact, sometimes that is beyond our control, which is not documented. For example, a requirement will have, let's say, 25 characters or something like that to be used, or 25 bits to make it more easy from binary perspective. When you implement using any of the typical languages, it will by default allocate 32 bits. There is no 25-bit concept when you actually implement on a machine based on the 30-bit compiler and whatnot. So those 7 bits, one can call it buffer underflow, overflow, various things are there. However, how do we deal with this theoretical requirement versus what can actually happen the way digital computers are running? This aspect has not been looked at in a very big way. The other one where I think Professor Shamsundar is the lead, but Mike is with me for now. It's about, we all know in software engineering, there is a specific area called formal methods, and some people call it program analysis and all. And we have very specific techniques by which the requirements can be captured in a formal way, mathematical way. And if the same thing can be implemented, ditto, a 100% requirement matching and with no plus minus. In Sanskrit there is something called a sutram. Sutram means it has just enough to satisfy the needs. Even if you remove one bit, it does not mean the same thing, and it does not have anything extra, anything less. So that kind of watertight requirements to executable form, today we do not have. This actually requires more people who can do model-based engineering, formal methods, with standard idea of theoretical computer science, the fundamentals, and then from there you actually generate the software rather than write the code. That is something practically missing, very difficult to find. And the second aspect is the configuration and system related, where it was designed and where does it operate, and how the system should be configured. In fact, many of the people, if you look at a place like SAG, JCB and all, they spend ages only working on the configurations and how the system has to be put, where it will work, where it will not work, the deployment scenarios and all. In a typical software, it does not find that kind of importance. The other aspect to look at is even the testing, assuming modeling is very, very complicated and we don't want to get into it. How do we even test? In fact, the the coverage of test coverage is reducing day by day with what we call CI/CD pipeline. So because we develop and deliver, and that is a challenge. Again, if the test vectors are generated using some formal methods, then again we will have a quality solution software that is coming out of it. At least it will pass the test which it should pass. Today at best what we have is boundary value kind conditions and things like that. That is another area where the development or the testing, that is a major challenge. Now in this scenario, what is possible so that when the PQC we take it up, like just now Dr. Anandamohan mentioned, thanks to CCSR and MIT, today we have a post-quantum cryptography implementation project with us, where Dr. Subbu's team from SETS and IIT Chennai and others are partners. We are looking at essentially developing a solution in a structured way. From the development perspective, first thing, whatever is being developed is in line with the standards. That's what Professor also said. You are supposed to know everything and thoroughly cryptanalyzed except for the secret key or one unknown. All the rest are known. So to that extent, we should develop something which is code which is trusted, or the software that is in total control of yourself. That complies with the requirement. It gives us the first thing of having a trusted solution. Second, it interoperates because it is complying with all the requirements. Then all said and done, there is a variant where some flaw can still be exploited. If you look at that exploit coming, how, when, we do not know, but as and when it surfaces, we need a alternate arrangement. So can we have a variant which is similar to this but does not exactly follow, so that it is resilient to a global failure, so to say, a plan B kind of thing. And the third one is, of course, many a times we need something very proprietary, very specific for certain applications. That is the third aspect. So this is the way the whole thing is being planned under this project where we are working. Here we are also looking at formally testing and validating the requirements and the design in the appropriate mathematical notation and language, and using the right techniques. That is what we are looking at it. Today, at best, what we find is people using some kind of static analysis tools, which is lightweight formal method, some people call it. But essentially, 80% of what a static analyzer can do, if you do it right, it can be made part of the compiler itself. So that the mistakes cannot be made by the programmer in the first place. So it is very much possible. But we need to look at a different way of engineering the solution. So instead of doing the code, the so-called low-hanging fruits we talk about, demonstrate quick, implement something, I think we should follow the software engineering methodology of spend 70% of time in designing and coming up with a validation framework, and finally implementation should be in no time. That is the approach, that is the right approach we feel that will be taken by us. And for that, various methodologies that are available will be utilized. I think with respect to specifically for this, already both the professors, in fact 3 professors have highlighted, and we have Dr. Subbu also coming in, so that I leave it to them at this point. And anything else I will take up during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Dr. Subramanian.
Subbu sir, ball is in your court.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Esteemed members and dear professor and esteemed guest over there. It's my pleasure to be there. I just need a permission to just share a couple of slides. I think it is kind of disabled. Can it be allowed? Okay. Thank you. Just want to confirm whether slides are visible. Yeah, thank you. So the context at which we are actually discussing in this panel is, as explained by the experts, we are in the cusp of transition from a traditional crypto system to a post-quantum crypto system. So what does it mean is there is this evolving threat that the global race is there within 2026 or kind of a time period that we may have to migrate our existing crypto systems to a much more quantum resistant, attack resistant environment. Now, saying that, in the country we have the public key cryptography infrastructure, which is essentially based on the traditional crypto system, and we have quite a lot of applications that are being already adopted across the country. We see a lot of traction and adoption of PK applications across banking and finance, education, e-governance, workflows, judiciary, and things like that. These are typically using traditional crypto systems based on their PK primitive. So we have a huge interest and challenge that we need to cross to adopt the PQC primitive. Now, to give a context of it, I've been involved in this development of e-sign, electronic signature framework, which is pretty unique across the globe. That is only there in our country, where actually the public key crypto system is being enabled as a service. We are gifted to have the online authentication system through Aadhaar, based on which the entire workflow has been conceived by the controller of certifying authority and published standard And there are, today we have more than 10 to 12 e-sign service providers in the country, both public and private players. And this has actually integrated large stream applications from finance and various use cases. Now, what is it takes for us to translate this to get it enabled for post-quantum cryptography? First of all, the question is it possible to do? And if it is possible, what are the challenges that we need to overcome and things like that? The primary concern that, as the experts have identified, there are two things. As the standardization of the post-quantum crypto system is still being evolved, there are already global efforts and national efforts that, as shared by the panel members, towards evaluation and testing of performance and security is ongoing. To this specific aspect of e-sign, the requirement is for every digital signature that needs to be signed for a particular document, digital signing to happen, there needs to be a faster way of key generation to happen. And then there needs to be a way that you are able to generate the CSR, the certificate signing request. And then you need to do also the validation in verification from the client side. And this all happens in a single session. Now, the question is, when we look at the performance analysis and the published report that's given over there in the link over there, interesting observations that are already published, which compares various implementation of dilithium and all other digital signature candidate of post-quantum crypto, Falcon and Sphinx Plus. There are measures that they have shared with respect to the performance, with respect to the storage space, the size of the signatures, and the processing capability that it would all entail, and things like that. Interestingly, the report, one of the report that is published, claims that the analysis proves that for such applications which are more intensive over time-sensitive applications like web server and client-based applications, which are largely are, looks like crystal dilithium seems to be a better candidate. Now, when you look at another class of applications, like it could be blockchain-based applications where a relay node would want to do only a verification and validation, only verification, then Falcon seems to be a better candidate. So while we have range of options for PQC, it is the application context that is also equally important. One needs to understand the context under which the speeds and the requirement of it are met by a specific class of application that we kind of getting it adopted to. Now, another dimension that comes into picture when we think of adopting PQC is also the end-to-end element that involves not just the application, but also the equipments and other methods that are being used. Like, for example, largely in the context of PKI, we largely use the hardware security module, and these entities should be supporting the post-quantum primitives. And end-to-end, we should see that there is no hiccups in any application workflow. So this all requires quite a lot of testbed experiments and things like that. This is what we are interested in carrying out and being carried out at sets. And coming to that, another aspect of the use cases, you look at the PKI management. When you talk about the PKI management, there is a typical certificate life cycle, and that needs to be managed. And we have a software developed, at least by sets, we call it as the QSafe, the Quantum Safe Enabled CA, which actually enables the hybrid certificate to be generated, supports presently crystal dilithium and Sphinx Plus. So for the adoption point of view, the application owners can migrate through direct migration, or they can go through a intermediate step through adopting initially a hybrid certification support, and then directly phase it off the traditional algorithms and certificates, and then go for the PQC one. So these are the elements that one needs to be taking cognizance about when we talk about the PKI management. In the emerging scenario, I'm sure that there will be a lot of students out there who are looking at a global initiative, the Open Quantum Safe project, which is an important one that gives the platform for prototyping the quantum resistant cryptography. There are interesting published report from Radboud University from Netherlands that talks about the small footprint devices like ARM Cortex board. How do you implement PQC? What are all the challenges in that and things like that. And we see a lot of applications coming up in coming days when you talk about vehicular communication, when you talk about intelligent road transportation and things like that, which would demand PQC at the node level. In summary, we see that there is the notion of adoption of PQC should be end-to-end. A large effort on benchmarking and testing is important. Globally, we see a lot of these initiatives across the nations. Apart from the NIST, we see happening across various nations like South Korea, China, Russia, and various other nations, Ukraine, and standardization efforts as well, which are very important for us. And at SETS, we look at some of these things for the implementation of our CA, trying out in the implementation of PQC in the small footprint devices, testing and evaluation through side channel analysis and things like that. So I think this is an interesting period for us to carry out a lot of experimentation before we get into the adoption of it. Thank you.
This is on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm from Office of CCA, and CCA will be the user of the solution that gets deployed. So as a user, my viewpoint or CCA's viewpoint is what gets delivered, when will it get delivered, in what shape will it be delivered, whether it will be a matured product or a robustness check, whether it has been done or not. What about the performance? Is it an optimized solution? Then on what kind of hardware will it be executed? What will be the system's truthness from the hardware root, basically, and how will these things get ensured? Is there any make and break practice of the algorithm? So as we develop, are we going to test breaking the system also, so to have a robust product? So do we have plans for that? Where to get the hardware on which we start the testing? When do we start the testing? So there have been some of the vendors who have already done PQC testing, and they have offered the hardware. So we can begin testing our solutions right as we start developing and not wait till the end, that once the product gets developed, we start testing. So our viewpoint, let us keep testing as we go ahead. So maybe have a agile development kind of program. And what about compatibility with the existing CA softwares, the HSM, tokens? So we have to keep all those things in mind. So that is my user perspective. I hope it has been taken care of in the project. Thank you.
Okay, I think the main perspectives have been given. It's really time for your attention and comments, suggestions, and also questions which may be bothering both young students and practitioners and so on. You can start. Questions? Working? If anything, you just drop in and ask for the email and all that. Of course, you can always send questions and all that to the CDAC email. And right now, of course, suppose you take some notes. Any of you like to raise any questions?
One question, sir. Actually, sir, I have very intriguing question. Like basically, sir, the trapdoor function of this trapdoor function for the post-quantum cryptography is based on the linear algebra, whereas this RSA algorithm is based on the prime number factorization. Both are mathematical in nature. Why can't a quantum computer break the this crystal or this lattice-based algorithm? How can we prove it theoretically?
Okay, I have what I call insight answer, not technically completely right in the first instance. This is somewhat deeper technical, but roughly put, it's like this, as mathematicians or physicists would put it. The classical, not classical, that's classical. Okay. RSA and Diffie-Hellman are based on what's called problems in abstract algebra, which are to do with algebraic structures, which are to do with traversing set of points, large number of points, in a algebraic set, a group, okay? Orbits of a group, and then that leads to something called a periodicity, and that leads to something called a phase of a sinusoid by some mapping, and that leads to a quantum Fourier transform, which can be computed by the quantum model in a very rapid way. So that's why that was discovered by Shor, and it became the rapidest polynomial type. Now, these problems, particularly the lattice problems, and somewhat related coding theory problems, have the structure of finding a large number of points in a vector space, which is closest to the origin. Or, given 2 points, give me 2 points which are closest among them. Okay? So finding this, there is apparently no structure. You can go through here, there, in some periodic way. It's not clear. So you are going an exploratory way of exploring all points is what makes it hard. There are lots of shortcuts, lots of approximations. These depend on the parameter sizes and so on. Okay. So presently the thing is that in general they call it, these are algebraically structured problems, that is which are amenable to quantum phenomenon measurements. Okay. Whereas this is not algebraically structured, but in some combinatorial way, many things are possible. And added to that is the last complication of a probabilistic nature, which is what swings your scribe. Hash function based make from a big space to a small space. So, but going back from the small space to the big space, you really don't have a handle. That's it.
Thanks.
Next question, Santanu.
Sir.
Of this nature.
Anyone?
I mean, the questions can be of many facets, not necessarily.
Sir, can I ask one question? So, this source algorithm and Grover algorithm, that's fine, but still they don't work for a bigger number. But the new PQC algorithms, they are a bit complex and performance is a bit slow. So should the adoption be delayed until really quantum computers are able to break this traditional classical cryptography, or should we start now itself? Now means like once it's standardized in next year maybe.
Okay, others will have.
No, now we actually, for example, they have modeled. Hello, what they have done is, there was some work like AES. Suppose I want to break, how many qubits are required? They found that some 2,500 qubits are required. Today we don't have. So hardly 56 or some, Google has some 50 or 60 something is there. So what they are doing is, to build that big computer itself, it takes time, but we should not wait for that time. We have to do now. So somebody, for example, they have done small examples, like I give you one, this product of two primes, small power. Then you can try to see brute force search and some using Rover's algorithm, how much, or Code's algorithm, how much time it takes. People have done the comparison and found that these are efficient.
My question is that are we really rushing for adopting PQC for now, or should we wait? Because performance is not that good.
So there's, are we ready with the solution?
No,
No, it is
next.
not there, no? So first let us develop it, test it, and then wait.
Some have been accepted.
So let us reach the bridge and then we'll decide whether to cross it or not.
Okay, sir.
Other thing, actually, what people are suggesting now is hybrid encryption. Hybrid means they say, you should not say old one, I will just throw, because that is working now. That infrastructure is there everywhere. So what I will do, I will put that in parallel with this modern one. Then after you are fully satisfied with this modern one, then you throw up that old one. So the transition period, in fact, there is a migration roadmap given by NIST also.
Sir, I'll give you with an example. Now you find your debit card with the chip on it, ATM debit card. The liability shift date for that was December 95, and we started adopting in 2005 or 6. So 10 years we were able to take the risk. The banks took the risk. Visa said we are not going to take the liability, but the bank said there is no fraud, so we accept taking the risk. So there are examples. You have the solution ready, but you don't adopt it because there is the threat perception or impact is there. So that is the decision which is taken to be taken later on. As of now, we have to develop the solution. We have not developed that.
This is Subbu also wanted to say, but there is also one intriguing sociological answer. Actually, they call it the encrypted stuff of yesteryears, may be broken today or tomorrow. So what they say is, very clever people must take all the certificates you have issued, long-term certificates, collect them, change them, not release them at all. Because quantum computer, where it comes, almost 10 years down the line, if it breaks an old 10-year-old secret, it's gone. So one is not to release them, re-encrypt them using modern things and keep it. These are all different strategic viewpoints. So can't wait. That's the idea. But although I believe technologically it will take a long time for that. Subbu wanted to say something. Subbu, do you want to say something about it?
Yes, sir. Actually, I was trying to say, I think I agree with what Mr. Aashish ji said. Basically, we need to have a hybrid, the way in which things are moving are in hybrid way. It supports both traditional as well as PQC method. And whether we move for, as a nation, as a whole to move it, but definitely the work related to benchmarking, analysis, and getting our hands wet into all that is very important at this hour.
Yeah, so maybe I have slightly different words for the same point that have been raised. We have to look at things from science, engineering, technology, economic or business or commercial perspective. Science never stops. It is about trying new things. So whether PQC or anything, something new has been found, there is a possibility we can explore. As human, it is our job, it is our nature, we should explore. Otherwise, one can ask, why are you looking for a colony in Moon or Mars? Are we too early? That is not the point. The exploration as a human, as a scientific part has to happen. That part has no return on investment. And when it has a return on investment, it is not quantifiable. It is a life-changing or game-changing experience, as they call it. The second aspect is the technology development, which is what we are talking about, TRL-8. Oh, we understood the concept, so if needed, I can mass produce. Today, that is what we do. When Buddha smiled, Was the intention to make so many atomic bombs? No. But we understood everything. If needed, I have the expertise to produce. So this is the second reason. We need to have the technology with us. Third aspect is, only when a technology is developed, over a time and practice, you engineer it to perfection so that mass production at a low cost will happen. Otherwise, there was a time, I will take a healthcare example, the dialysis machines. You have to get into an ICU for a dialysis. Today is portable, people carry, they keep it home. Why? As you keep reusing what looked very complicated, can be modularized, can be made simple to use. That is the third aspect, that is the engineering aspect. The last aspect is, of course, purely economics, commerce, business. That, we can keep it aside at this point for the purpose of discussion. So purely from science, technology, engineering perspective, it is imperative that we invest, learn, and whatever little bit or qubit wiser, that is good for us. Thank you.
As Sudarsan said, in engineering you have a goal, so you have to do that. Now you have to improve that goal or scale it up, technology has to come. Now if you don't have technology, I cannot scale up the supercomputing, right? So that is whereas science, if you have a goal, you don't do it. If you know what you have to do, why do you have to do the science? Because it's already known. So you are always going in a different direction or the other. But my question for Venimadhavan is, it's a very general question from a programming perspective. The classic universal quantum computing, how far it is. In a sense, Turing machines, because of the polynomial transformation of any Turing machine to any other machine, made it possible to have our generality of the computing. But the main problem in the quantum computing machine is, if you have something like a 16-bit machine, 32-bit machine, what you encode for algorithm for 16 may not be easily transferable to 32 bits. And so that is a real programming challenge that perhaps one has to address to see that it becomes a viable thing. Otherwise, the amount of energy you spend both on human value, etc., will become enormous.
Yeah, of course, this is the same, what we call general skeptic scientist also express a similar viewpoint. There is no, again, as you said, the transformation proof kind of thing not there, so it cannot become a general purpose machine. It's being felt. So, for example, search optimization, decision, and these kinds of arithmetic, which involve exact answers.
What I thought was that at least that is known, that is at least for the cryptographic algorithms, is it possible to push it up as a transformation?
No, in fact, probably for cryptographic problems, it may not be possible. That's the feeling. Of course, the translation in terms of resource explosion as the problem scales is possible, but then there is imponderable to think about errors and error correction, error control stuff using some codes and so on. Again, that is classical. It's not clear how it progressively scales. So I think what it meant was, for crypto and everything, you want exact precision. This is another problem. You want an exact answer. And this new linear algebraic codes slightly do away from that. Even in the amidst errors, you can recover, because.
But I thought IBM recently did they had a very nice error correcting algorithm for quantum computing. Is that correct?
New surface codes are there, which will reduce the burden of ancillary and auxiliary qubits, so the problem won't blow up exactly. So because of these, I would call skepticism by eminent specialists.
I've got also one.
Yeah, so the answer is, in short, they would say probably even they are a hybrid, classical and a quantum hybrid, both for the encryption, decryption, and other. See, encryption, decryption, you won't use quantum anyway. It's only for the cryptanalysis.
So, sir,
for cryptanalysis.
hello. I'm also having some analogy between the traditional PKI versus post-quantum PKI, post-quantum PKI. You can take the analogy from IPv6, IPv4. We started to adopt IPv6 right from 2000 onwards, but till now we are still working on dual stack. So I think instead of just straightforward going to a post-quantum PKI, it's better to have dual stack. Let them both them run together for some time, and then only we can switch over to post-quantum PKI.
So what you're saying for IPv6 kind of thing, the migration has to be done.
So migration is there, but you have to do. You can run with dual stack also, dual stacking. Yes.
The applications get shifted. Is that a feasible manner in which we can proceed? That's his question.
I think so far the world has been that only.
Yes.
But here also, ultimately when it comes to cyber, there are two things. One is egoistic to prove I am capable. The other one is there is an economic. If one of the two motivations are not there, even if there is a possibility, people are not going to do it. That has been the trend in the past. I think human way of thinking is not likely to change.
See,
So some coercion will remain.
No, as a systemic thing, there is no difficulty about moving to this new age cryptography. See, the new age cryptography is classical. It doesn't work on a quantum machine the same way. So, no, I didn't understand your question perhaps. That is, you move to IPv6 or something, you want to...
No, I want to say, that the point is moving from V6 requirement was well known, V4 will be exhausted, V6 came, but V4...
Still we are using V4.
It's a dual stack running, will it be like that?
Oh, see, that point about using classical, what you call crypto-safe thing, the so-called modern quantum crypto-safe, it will be, how to be hybrid, but very quickly has to be done away with. See, this reason even impressed me. Because today, if you use a 2048 or a 4096 root CS key, it may not be broken today, tomorrow, next 5 years. My estimate, finally no quantum machine will come. So except that NSA or probably OTS.
Same way we are still using IPv6.
It's possible somebody will break.
So
the best is to change from today to beyond. That's the feeling among implementers. So if you have a correct stack with the classical, nowadays they call it classical. It's just yesterday, last year, previous years, RSA based things. And then implement the new ones also and move away from the RSA based things. In fact, algorithmically speaking, I like still the RSA based, and many people like that because it's the simplest possible. You can explain on a board within about 10 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I think the questions are still flowing, but anyway, the experts are going to be here for tomorrow also, so you can interact with them. But we would like to use this forum to the initiatives that have been taken up by the Office of CCA and MIT for initiating a project on developing post-quantum cryptographic implementations. So we have been recently awarded a project by MIT. I request the project coordinator, Mr. Raghavendra Patil, to mention the deliverables of the project.
Thank you, sir. We thank CCA and MIT for funding this project. This is done in collaboration with CDAC Bangalore, CDAC Noida, SETS Chennai, IIT Madras, and IIIT Kurnool. So we'll be developing a post-quantum cryptographic dongle, which will have an implementation of NIST standardized algorithms Right now, we are targeting crystal dilithium and crystal kyber. And this dongle will be used for setting up a post-quantum CS suite as well as the SSL. I mean, it will be SSL will be enabled. I mean, for enabling the post-quantum SSL with this dongle. So those are the broad deliverables. And as Ash. Yeah, sure. So Aashish sir basically asked about the make or break. So make or break points. I mean, we already before proposal only we interacted with you CCA. Aashish sir. So we made an internal project. So suppose CDAC Bangalore is developing, SETS Chennai or CDAC Noida will be trying to break it, or other way. So we have already built in that. And about the testing and all, so we have a 3-tier testing in fact. So the one is we have one crypto model validation group who will be testing it, validating it with respect to the ISO 19790 standard, that is the internal. Then SETS will also be involved. After that, we are planning for a third-party testing also, compliance testing. Optimization, anyway, so there are many papers published. So we'll have a regular interaction with Venimadhavan sir, Anandamohan sir, and other experts in the domain. So we'll be updating or we'll be presenting our results, our benchmarks, so that we'll improve upon every time. Yeah, solution will be robust because we have side channel assessment is also part of it. So for example, including the classical algorithm, AES GCM mode, which is the advanced one we are going to implement, that will be side channel resistant, and the HMAC and all the post-quantum algorithms. So ISO 19790 has already given a guidance, very detailed guidance on the side channel implementation and validation. So we are going to follow that, and SETS Chennai and CDAC Bangalore will be working together in this achieving this goal, particularly for a robust implementation, side channel implementations. Yeah, and we'll also be, for example, this is on the hardware side. On the software side, we'll be following the secure coding standards, ASCERT and other things. So that we are coming up with some standards. CDAC Noida will be, so they agreed, the team has agreed to come up with the standard or the guidelines on that. So all other teams will be adopting that. Or something you want. Anything else, sir? Thank you very much. As a chief investigator of this project, I thank Office of CCA, Aashish Banati, KK Saundra Pandan, Burman, and other, and Sir, Arvind Sir, and from my team, Sunita Madam, Rahul Naiwal, Manoj Jain. It was a very good experience. Proposal itself is a very good experience for me, and I learned many things. So thank you very much. And also Venimadhavan Sir, Anandamohan Sir, who guided us all along the this proposal journey. And I thank all my collaborators. Thank you very much.